Should you still be mailing for mail-in sweeps? This is a hot topic right now. It's a hot topic because of a lot of reasons. Is the mail-in system for entering sweepstakes essentially dead? For the most parts, it is, but there are definitely still sweeps that it's worth doing for. Just not nearly as many, and there's a lot of reasons to why. So I figured that's what I would talk about today. Back in the day, you had colorful envelopes, you made your own, and there's still a lot of people who still do those. And a lot of members, even IWIN members, will tell you it's still their favorite way to enter. I have to tell you, because of the cost, it's not really my favorite way to enter. It's actually my least favorite way. And it's, in my opinion, the last thing I'm going to do. And it's strictly from a cost perspective. The current cost right now is 68 cents to mail a letter. That's expensive per entry. I mean, if you do the simple math, just grab a calculator. And if you have a sweep over a month, that's $20 you're spending on entries. Triple that for a 3-month sweep, entering every day, you're over $60 to enter one sweep. Now, maybe the prizes are worth it, and that's why you'll hear me talk in IWIN and in the newsletter. Is it worth it? Does the math make sense? And sometimes it does, and sometimes you're going to take those risks just because. But know that the price of stamps is up almost 50% in the last 10 years. And since 2001, it is doubled. So there's twice as much to enter today by mail as it was back in 2001. That's a long time ago, but here's the difference. The cost of entering online, still free. You don't have to spend money or risk money. That's the big difference between mail-ins. So why would people even mail in the beginning? I mean, when I first started entering, I didn't even know what a mail-in was. I had no idea until my first convention. And when I went to my first convention, I'm sitting there, and some of you guys have heard this story, and there was someone speaking from the post office, actually. And they were talking about literally how to mail a letter and how thick it could be. And I don't know. I literally thought it was one of the most interesting, but also most boring things I had heard at a convention. But people were into it. And I saw people frantically taking notes, or at least that's what I thought. And I was like, am I missing something? Why in the world are these people taking all this notes on how to mail a letter? Just throw a stamp on it, address it, and toss it in the mail. Well, what I found out was it was these things, 3x5s. And if you're new to the sweeping world and you don't do mail-in entries, you have no idea what I'm talking about. But of old school, these things are like gold. This is what people fill out because this is what is typically required on an entry. You fill one of these out, you put it in typically a number 10 envelope. It can be fancy like this. It can be a plain white one. Some people decorate them, and you mail it off and cross your fingers. Now, the reason for this is a lot of times it's an alternate method of entry, because some sweepstakes will require you to purchase a product or do something that costs money, and therefore they have to provide you with an alternate method of entry if they're following most state guidelines or most state laws. Not every sweep is going to do this. There's no use trying to educate them, but if they are, actually, they're going to have this option for you. And it's supposed to be equal to how you can enter using the other methods, whether it's purchase or whatnot. If it's unlimited by purchase, it should be unlimited by mail. But they need to provide this option. Again, not everyone does it. That's a whole different video. But nowadays, with the cost rising so high, sometimes it's easier to go buy the product. Recently, there was a sweep that's giving away 5,000 prizes. It's still going on currently, and I'm not going to bring up the name about it out of respect of IWIN members, but some of you know exactly what I'm talking about. You can buy the product or you can mail for a code. Well, I went out day 2, bought the product. Guess what? Instant win. Why? Because a lot of people just didn't go to the store and get the product, and the prizes aren't very high in value overall. I more did it to see the process. I like to see the process of different sweepstakes and how they run, especially if my members have questions. Therefore, I can explain it versus just sitting behind a desk going, I just put them out there. I don't really enter. That's not what I do. And I'm one of the few site owners that actually enter and win on a regular basis, as most of you know. So you have to compare the risk reward when it comes to that. Now, kind of on the same subject, a judging agency, a national judging agency, asked me my opinion on some mail-in options, and they wanted to test some mail-in options. So what we did was I actually mailed 10 entries in on one given day. One given day, mailed all 10 of them in. They found it very interesting that 6 of them showed up on the same day. A day later, one more showed up, and a day later, another one showed up. 2 of them just turned out missing. 20% of my entries gone. Now, that's not what we were testing. We weren't testing the mail system or to see if it worked or to see if it would get there. Again, totally different topic, different subject. What we were testing was different ways to send in entries because they're trying to make it more automated. So you've seen some already that will have you print out something and it will have like a barcode or a QR code on it, and they will just scan it and then it puts all your information into their database. So it becomes a lot quicker. The old school way is literally they would get these 3x5s and they would have to manually enter that information into their database. It's very time consuming, very labor oriented, and therefore the cost of running a promotion with a mail-in option goes up significantly, which is why a lot of judging agencies will try, if possible, to avoid it. Now, there's other ways around it. They can do it by email. They just have to have a free method to enter. Some of them do an alternate method link. You've seen that. That's very common, and those are great for people like us who enter sweepstakes because, again, it doesn't cost money. You're not spending money to enter mail-in sweeps, which, again, in my opinion, there's some sweeps that are great, but the majority of them, I enter very few mail-ins. I think I've entered less than, for sure less than 5, but I'm guessing less than 3 or 4 this year so far. So we're, almost 3 months into the year, and there just hasn't really been anything great. Now, tomorrow there could be a great mail-in sweep come up, and it might be unlimited entries, and I may enter a couple hundred. But the majority of them, I'm going to try and find a different way to enter. Plus, you have to look at the odds. Again, when you're starting to spend money, what are you trying to win? Are you trying to win a $100 gift card, a $500 gift card, a $5,000 gift card? How many entries are there? Now, we don't always know, but sometimes you can guesstimate. A lot of credit card sweepstakes have where you swipe the card, you get an entry, or you can enter by mail. Well, think how many times people use their credit cards and how many people have that specific credit card. Most of those are in the millions. So your odds are almost astronomical. Are they legit? Sure. Could you win them? Sure. Will you? Odds are not. You can, but you're definitely risking a lot of money and a lot of time because mail-ins take time. You got to fill them all out versus just entering online. Now, I'm not trying to say don't ever enter a mail-in because that's not true. You still want to pick and choose the ones. And if you go on iWin and you see something that's a mail-in and it's nailed as a Tom's pick, well, it's probably worth mailing in for. Also, if there's a good mail-in, I usually will highlight it in our newsletter as well. That's why I use the newsletter for. Years ago, the newsletter put out the sweeps. Nowadays, the newsletter just kind of highlights a couple sweeps that explain things to you and it educates you so that you can actually look and make decisions when you find sweeps outside of iWin or on your own. The site itself is the meat and potatoes of iWin. That's where all the sweeps are. The newsletter, just a very small sampling. It's a minute fraction of what is actually on the site. So, when you have an issue with a mail-in, which we've had a lot lately, what's your recourse? What if they take them and they just throw them away? Does it happen? Absolutely, it happens. We've seen it happen numerous times now over the last few years. It's been very evident. It's obvious when we have a huge membership base of iWin members who did enter by mail and none of them win, and there were thousands of prizes. Definitely makes you head scratch. Let alone we've had some other examples, and I'm not going to call out the companies by name, but we know and we've seen things. We've also seen mail-ins just randomly return from major judging agencies recently. So these things do happen. But what's your recourse? Not really much. I mean, you can contact them, you can contact the judging agency. In a sense, it's great, it's good to let them know, but again, you're spending your time and your energy. Most likely, they probably know, or they're probably aware of the situation. Now, is a judging agency or a sponsor going to tell you they didn't count mail-ins? Typically not. Typically, they're not going to admit that, obviously. It's hard to prove. So the cost involved, again, to prove it for what, you kind of just need to let it go, move on to the next sweep, and not worry about it. That's how kind of sweepstakes work in general. A good majority of them run pretty fairly, pretty legit. But you're going to have things, especially if you're entering social media type sweeps, that aren't always run on the up and up, which is why, again, iWin just doesn't put out sweeps to put out sweeps. We're very specific about what we put on it. If I'm concerned that somebody may have an issue getting their prize, well, that's actually worse than not winning it. Now, if you win it, now you want it. And if you don't get it and you want it, you were excited for nothing. So if I'm concerned about that all, I won't put them on the site. And I'll usually tell people why. But if you see things on the site, I'm not saying I don't miss anything, but there's usually a good reason why you're not seeing it iWin. And you're welcome to always ask and reach out to me why it's not on there. Maybe I did miss it. If I did, great. Guess what? I'm going to put it on the site and you're going to get credit and get some free time added to your iWin membership. If there's a reason why, I'm going to tell you why. So that's what I have for you today. So in conclusion, are mail-in sweeps dead? Not yet. They're definitely in the critical care state. We'll see. Prices are not going down. So you're just going to see them increase. Now, again, pick and choose. Just because something has a mail-in option doesn't mean you should do it. Sometimes it's just like flushing money down the toilet. See you next time.